Good evening. Greetings and salutations. Welcome everyone to the January 13th meeting of the Instructional Policy and Student Achievement Committee. I will be the chair of this committee, Dr. Molnar of the Akron School Board. Joining us, we also have co-chair here, Member Jaros. We also have Member Harrison of this committee. Also joining us, we have our president of the board, Sykes, and board member Kelly. On this committee, we have Dr. Lash also joining us, and the administrative representative of our Instructional Policy Committee. So, as this is our first committee meeting of the year, and our superintendent Outley has also just joined us. So welcome, everybody. As this is our first committee meeting of the year, we have a lot to talk about and a lot to plan about. The first thing on our agenda is public comment. It does not appear that anyone from the public is here to comment. So we will jump right into business and not waste any time discussing together collaboratively our plan and our goals for the year for this committee. This is not a new committee. Instructional Policy Committee is a long-standing committee of this district, but I want us to move together with transparency and with purpose. And so there are a lot of things in my time here that I have seen within Instructional Policy Committee meetings. So I've seen curriculum instruction, instructional technology, data, student achievement. The word policy is in the instructional policy title, so policy review and recommendations. And I also want to use this committee meeting as an active meeting with active discussion instead of presentations of things that have already been done. So with that in mind, I kind of have an idea, because I didn't want to come here with absolutely no recommendations or ideas or a draft of some aspects of the Instructional Policy Committee. I know Dr. Lash and I have briefly spoken about this. And I was wondering if just from this screen here, does this scope of work sound reasonable to you from your time in this district and your time in Superintendent Outley, your time working in this district? Okay, so, yeah.
Okay, the first page. Okay, yes. As we get into the topics, then yes, I'll have more to offer that will kind of maybe relate back to some of these pieces just to make sure there's clarity, but absolutely, the scope of work looks good.
All right, so with that, I guess we will jump in. What I would like to get through in today's meeting, and if we don't use the full hour, we don't need the whole hour. What I would like to get through is for us to talk about the scope of work, dig into those topics, especially if administration has some opinions on that. I want to talk about our meeting schedule. Yesterday, President Sykes announced the meeting schedule of all the dates, so that way we have the dates of all the committee meetings for the whole rest of the year, and then what our agenda template would look like, so we can have some consistency and predictability in our routine. So with that, if we want to go to page 2, there were 5 areas within the scope of work: the curriculum instruction, instructional personnel, instructional technology, data and student achievement. Were these the areas, Dr. Lash, that you thought could have some molding?
Yes, well, just, and I'll invite Superintendent Outley too. We didn't have the opportunity to connect, but as you said, this is our kind of thinking, planning, conversing. So looking at the instructional personnel and professional learning section. Curriculum and instruction sounds great. Curriculum implementation, instructional initiatives, curriculum adoptions, materials, programs, that sounds great. Exactly. For the instructional personnel and professional learning, just had a wondering around the licensure piece and the connect to human resources and, just the overlap of another committee possibly. And so it just didn't know like the depth of that and where that might be better situated depending on where those conversations could lead or what the connect would be for this committee, if that makes any sense.
Yes, thank you. And that does make sense to me. Was there another committee that administration had in mind?
Well, if there were particular pieces of information around licensure, might be more in like the finance when staffing is talked about. Like, again, just without knowing what the depth, I mean, if something connects with instructional policy and student achievement, that speaks to licensure, definitely. But depending on what the goal of that would be, it might be better situated in like finance, if staffing is a consideration.
Okay. Member Harrison?
Given the fact that we have, with our committees, I'm pretty sure in the committees we will have overlap. And so because we're in one committee, it doesn't limit that discussion. And the policy and instructional policy will have a lot of overlap. Finance and personnel will also have a lot of overlap with legal contracts. And so I think the managing the best committee, but also understanding that the board may have to just have some conversation, some cross conversations with committees, and just continue to communicate the board and administration. But I don't want to look at something and say it goes to that committee because it's heavy over there, with the understanding we may have overlap in over a number of things. We will over a number of things.
Sure.
Member Droz?
Now, I can see like legal and contracts possibly be where some licensures might be because you're trying to see which contracts we want to engage in. But perhaps when we're looking at a contract or a licensure as it relates to student achievement or instructional policy, or how has this contract impacted our students? How has this helped us accomplish our student goals, whether it's from the report card for the state? So this might be the opportunity for the whatever licensure or contract we enact. How has it impacted the district, whereas legal and contracts or finance will be more about the structure behind the contract. That's maybe how I see it.
Superintendent Outley.
Thank you, Chair Molinar. I was just wondering, would there be an opportunity to discuss in both committees? Is that what you're saying, Member Harrison? Because that's sort of how I saw it as well. But then I was I just wanted to make sure that you didn't feel like we were overlapping by taking it maybe to finance and to this committee, because it does sort of straddle both committees.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Yes, we are one district. And so it would make sense that even though we try to divide and conquer, that it should blend together and come together. And so there will be overlap, or there might be aspects of something that we see from a different paradigm in a different committee. So one of the things that I was thinking when we initially were drafting this, when it comes to the instructional personnel and professional learning, I was remembering when we had our equity committee meetings. And when our equity committee met, we often talked about staff training. And the amount of staff that were trained, the impact of the staff that were trained, and how that really affected our classroom experience and our student learning. And so that was one part of it that I thought would possibly fit in instructional policy rather than finance, because it affects the classroom. And our goal is student learning, student experience, and frankly, it is part finance because some of the training we pay for, but the justification of why we're paying for it, the benefit of that cost, is something that we can really highlight here. Were there any other parts? Yes, thank you.
Okay, the next section, instructional technology, and it just follows the same kind of pattern there. That so just bringing to note tech licenses, things like that, would definitely make their way to the legal contracts or what have you. Data privacy agreements are typically handled that way. Also, just making that note.
Yes, completely agree. The actual contract for the tech and the privacy agreements, that makes sense. What I would like to see here is, how are we using that technology? What is that technology used for? How in the classroom, where does this, how does that connect to learning? Are the students using this in the classroom? Are the students using this as homework? And those kinds of things. Where is the learning? Not where is the learning, but yes. Helpful. Okay. Anything else in this section? Okay. Great. Well, the next item in here, we're now on page 4, are the meeting dates. The meeting dates, of course, are our goal. We will meet once a month. Occasionally have to reschedule for holidays because of Mondays. Yes.
Well, I didn't know if the check marks got misaligned because the meetings are the first Monday. And so in looking at the calendar, the check marks. So February 2nd, March 2nd, and then there's a check there for March 30th, but I believe April 6th is the first Monday. And so just making sure that I wasn't misreading the alignment.
Good catch. It is the first Monday. I think this was every other Monday is what happened. Now I'm looking here. Okay.
So, yeah, just with the exception, as I looked at the dates, I think, now, it doesn't have to be this way. I think in the past there was no July meeting, and probably, I don't know what that Monday is, but looks like July 6th might be the first Monday. But their December, because the board meeting will be on December 7th, then our meeting does move to the second Monday. So barring those moves, yes, first Monday. And then I think September, with Labor Day, we moved to Tuesday, something to that effect. But just wanted to make sure I was not misreading those check marks.
Nope. This is why we discuss things. And we could discuss them in advance so we don't have to bring it up a bunch of times. You are absolutely right. First Monday of every month. July 6th will leave on the calendar for now with the option to cancel.
Okay.
And then the other one that you mentioned was December 14?
Yes.
Because the regular board meeting is the 7th. Sounds good. All right. So, any other discussion on meeting times and dates? Okay. The next section was a brainstorm. What I would like to have is a consistent agenda. From what I have heard is that once an agenda structure is in board docs, it's much easier to repeat it than to have to create a new one each time. And so from that aspect, for me, understanding the implementation from the admin side, a consistent structure for the template is a large priority. This is a draft of what I think it could be, so our agenda in board docs would have 7 items. But please, admin, I know you've had time to review this. What do you think?
Yes, I'm fine with the 7 items. We can make the adjustment. I did have one question. In the past, the content supervisors would provide like an update in each of their areas. And so it did not, so just wondering, will they continue, is that a desire that they continue to do that? And it used to be added to the agenda, not necessarily as a discussion topic, but really like an FYI. It was there to be able to look to see what was happening in science during that span of time, what was happening in math, those kinds of things. And so if we continue with that, just wondering, probably, we thought would that go under 3.01? It's a CNI update, but it really is not necessarily a discussion topic. Does it go in 4 for updates? Kind of that thing, or that question, if you will. If we still continue to do that one, and where would we like to see it on the agenda?
Seeing no other discussion, I have a couple questions. I think we have a lot of opportunities, like you said. It would be great if we could hear from everyone every meeting, but would we want to hear the same? So if we had it under 301 discussion and we just listed the subject areas and they just reported out, or would it be more meaningful, or would it make sense that sometimes they'd want to be in 3.1, sometimes they'd want to be in 4.1. Sometimes they have something in 4.2, and just we would have an overall understanding that hopefully everyone would have something every time, but they can see where they fit.
Do that. Do you have a thought?
I do agree with that. I think that it should go based on the content that they want to share with you, and it would fit under one of the items versus just generically going under 3.01 just because they're a curriculum specialist. So if they're coming to talk about data, you may want, and they're doing the report card presentation, you may want it under 4.01 because it's a presentation about their data from their core.
Okay.
So.
How many areas are there usually for each meeting?
It could vary. There's not always, an update to give, but there are 7 learning specialists, 7 content supervisors. Member Harrison?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the concerns that I have, not necessarily a concern, comments, is a lot of times when we have those presentations, they're time-consuming, and we never really get to the substance to ask the questions that are relevant to, if we have an hour meeting and we're using 45 of that in presentations, then we haven't really gotten to instructional policy. So I would like to kind of see less of the presentation and more of the information.
And thank you for saying that. And so let me just remind that in the past, it was just an attachment. No one came to speak on it. It was just an update, just as an FYI to have. You see what I'm saying? So they don't have to come and speak to those areas. We can continue, they do the update in preparation for the instructional policy and student achievement meeting. As Superintendent Outley said, if there is a topic that's, part of discussion for whatever reason, it's, instructional policy or business that needs to be addressed, we can carve out time for that. And if it involves one of those learning specialists or content supervisors, they're present at that time and can give that information. This truly was just a document that they make sure they have ready to go. So it just as an update as to what's happening in those areas. So it can remain that way. They are in the habit. They've been doing it for years, so they can continue that, or and we can continue that and have them show up when they need to, or handle that FYI in a different way. And again, they be present when they're needed to speak on a particular topic.
Yes, I think it would be great, especially if there's a topic that they need to speak on. And as far as the attachments go, especially if it's something that's going to be a future agenda item, that could even go under new business. That is an appropriate place for attachment. I'm trying to actually open an old instructional policy meeting to try to remember what type of content is usually held within those updates. Can you give me some more examples so I can think about what is usually included in those updates?
If something like science fair, if Dr. Halassa is, working with buildings on the science fair, getting ready, she might write a blurb just to let you know what's happening. Those kinds of things, just let you know what's happening in that content area across the district.
So, yes, if it doesn't seem to fit into any of the categories, we can try to put an attachment in. Maybe it's a new business because it's coming up. We can mention there's a science fair. And the best thing about this is we're trying to make a plan for a year, and we'll test it out. And if it doesn't work, we'll edit the plan.
Sounds good.
We'll try it. But some of the things, especially science fair, is a great example. I would love personally to see that in student success, because that is what the students are doing. I would love to hear students and see examples of their science fair projects. I know we get invitations sometimes, but we can't make it to everything, and so that would be a wonderful place for that. So, all right. Yes, Superintendent Outley.
Something that we've also done that I think you appreciated was actually have the students set their work up in the hallway, and that allows you, when you're in the building, an opportunity to engage in it, and then when you come to the meeting, if you needed any questions addressed, we could do it that way. So we could set it up in advance, so maybe it's up during a board meeting, so everybody could have a chance to see it, and then you could discuss it in committee if you felt the need to.
Yes, and that type of thing, it would be perfect for student success, definitely. What I would really like to, in the distinction, because here we do say student achievement, and so this distinction between student success and student achievement is I would like this committee to really focus on upcoming board action, things that are going to happen and that the board is going to need to make decisions on, and things that have already happened and we want to celebrate, we can put in student success. Any other discussion on agenda? All right. The next is yearly cycle of work. This is a terrible example, and I would like to say I made it terrible on purpose, but I didn't. I think in multiple committees, we talk about routine and predictability. And I do not want to tell administration, we have to talk about something in a specific month. You know way better than I will ever know when the best time to bring this information to the board so that we have time to take action on something, so we can be informed enough to take action on it. And so what I would really like from this area is for you to let us know in advance, like transportation. We take kids every year, and so if that's a topic that is going to be brought here in any way, what month would be the time for that? And as we discussed also, the data comes in. Students take tests all year round. We have iReady, we have ACT, we have, I don't even know. But I remember when we were looking at the blueprint, we could not have a single day where we had all new information because the data is constantly streaming in.
Yeah. Oh, Member Harris? Okay.
Dr. Lash.
So, thank you, Dr. Monar, because as I looked at this, I just thought nutrition, athletics, safety and security, transportation. And so, yes, thank you for a bit of that clarity, because again, just thinking through, the impacts to instructional policy and student achievement, hands down. I didn't know if this committee was going to be, looking for specific transportation pieces that we'd be calling in, folks who deal in that department and so on for some of the other departments. But to your point, yes, so for instance, like February is a good time to take a look at mid-year data because the semester ends mid-January, gives time for data to be pulled, analyze those kinds of things, and for us to, have something to respond to. And it's also, as we spoke about the report outs for the strategic plan. So if we are intending to report out quarterly, again, semester 1, quarter 2, ending mid-January, gives us that time to kind of get the data and be ready in this committee, Instructional Policy and Student Achievement, to take a look at a report out on Cornerstone 1, Cornerstone 2, and Cornerstone 4. And so, yes, if I don't know how much you want to work through that right now, but we definitely have some ideas and still kind of massaging it a little bit. But we, given when quarters end and what data will be in when, still have some questions. For instance, you mentioned ACT. If the students take the ACT in October, like when can we anticipate the results so that we can come back and take a look at that through this committee. So some of that we still have some questions to be answered, but definitely have some ideas about the timing of assessments that we have going on in the district, and when that data will be available to bring to this committee.
Superintendent?
Thank you very much. Right now, we're about to engage in our own data retreat with our senior staff. So I believe we have a tentative calendar that we've been using this year to guide our work. So yes. I'm in agreement with Dr. Lash that we will be able to capture when it happens. It's just sometimes based on when the state even calendar changes. There may be some changes from year to year, just depending on when the assessments are actually supposed to be given. Some are state driven, like our OSTs.
Member Jaros?
I think what's nice about some of the themes that could be targeted is being able to address a certain aspect of the regular school day that maybe isn't always talked about. So whether it's nutrition, athletics, one thing I even thought of was even disciplinary policies and how those are actually going. Because sometimes we may be focusing on a specific goal and that's our priority, and then we forget about checking in and seeing how are we doing with our nutritional goals or our athletics goals or preparation for summer learning. And so having opportunities at the instructional policy meeting might be a good opportunity to dive deeper into, well, what are we doing well that we should continue to do? And then what are the challenges that we're facing, whether it could be budgetary, it could even be implementation, or maybe there's a better idea. There's something that you, maybe as a district you want to be doing, but just there's a barrier in the way that maybe the board could help with. So I think having a specific theme that sort of encourages us to dive deeper into a specific topic that may be less of a conversation topic might help see some opportunities for growth.
Superintendent?
Most definitely. I think about, again, the work we're about to perform. And when you look at academics, you can't help look at academics without looking at attendance.
That's right.
Right? So that in and of itself could be a topic. You know, chronic absenteeism and how it can have an impact on student learning, right? If you're not in the seat, that's a challenging task to learn when you're not there. So definitely you would want to see that type of data, and that is what we're looking at as well, and we will bring that forth to you. If I could just say one other thing, I think that would also give us a chance to look at what do we need support from the community with advocacy around, right? So I think about when you were saying child nutrition and, the different things with SNAP that we had to reach out. Our legislation, legislators came and they did the work and released the SNAP. It's like things like that, but they need our voice, right, to help. And so it's a good partnership. So I think as we're bringing concerns to you, we could also talk about what things do we also want community support with, and how do we empower the community to help us with our advocacy.
Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that, because that was part of the goal. This yearly cycle of work, are we going to get it perfect the first year? Unlikely. Right, but we're going to try to do our best to have a yearly cycle of work now, and next year, next January, we can look at what we did this year and see what parts of it we want to replicate. But if we can create our goals for our yearly cycle of work, if we can post what we're trying to do, this is an opportunity to tell our local community, but also our broader community. There might be someone who's an expert, a national expert in one of the areas we're talking about, and they might be willing to come to town to log in or to view what we're doing. And so here's an opportunity for us to really scale our impact, and our media who comes. If they know that we're going to talk about something in July, they might start learning about it now and be prepared and have background because they know it will be relevant because we're doing this. So I will say, for the record, this example, scratch this. This was just brainstorm and inspiration. What I would really love is if administration could tell us what you think would be a really great cadence. Perfect. Because that would be very, very, very helpful to us. Okay. Any other discussion on cycle of work? Okay, well then moving right along here, we are now administration participation guide. So this section is really, I think, the last section, right? I think we're towards the end. Wonderful. So my thoughts for this section is, even though this is a long-standing committee, we are doing it a little bit differently. As Member Harrison mentioned, we used to have 35-minute presentations with 20-minute discussions on it, and that is not what we are planning to do anymore. And so just so there was a mutual understanding between administration and the board as who is moving which pieces on the board, or the chessboard, I guess. This is a board. I thought it would be nice for us to go through what we think. So the most important thing to me, well, We'll go through section by section. Was there anything in here that stood out to you from administration about this guide?
No.
Anything from the board? Okay. The most important thing to me on this was the last few sections. And actually the last section, what success looks like. How do we get there? What's our goal? What are we going towards? And so we can go all the way to section 7 here. And I want, looking for predictable, well-organized meetings, recommendations to data, note any follow-up items to the next meeting. And so this way, it keeps the work moving between meetings. What I would really, really appreciate as a goal, which was something that we did achieve during the legal policy committee meetings last year, was we leave today's meeting having a really good idea of what's happening during the next meeting and who's doing what to accomplish that in the next meeting. So that way, we don't have to have meetings between meetings. These are the meetings. So that is the primary goal for me. So with that in mind, are there any questions or discussion? Member Harrison.
I just want to go say it out loud. 2/3 of this committee is 2/3 of the policy committee. So we won't duplicate by policy here, and then we're trying to figure it out in the policy committee as well. So we'll use this to refine policy, and we won't duplicate it. It won't be in 2 committees, but we still have the rules committee, and then the third reading in the actual board meeting.
And so, if I may clarify, just to walk it out so that we put it on the ground. So, for instance, with the new, don't get me to remember the numbers, maybe 114, but with the new bill around the start date for kindergarten, you have to be 5 now by the first day of school. Which will cause a change to our board policy around enrollment. So if I hear you correctly, because I was thinking it would come here and then probably just looking at the flow of the options of coming here, where does an item go next? One of the numbers was it might go to another committee. So in my mind, that meant it might go then to policy committee to go through that process. But if I hear you correctly, if we talk here through the updates to that board policy around when a student has to be 5 to start kindergarten, it would happen here. It would not go on to the policy committee.
Correct. It'll follow the same 3 steps for the 3 readings, but it will be the first reading here and go to the rules committee.
Got it.
So we don't have to
Double
belabor it and create more work in another committee when we're dealing with instructional policy.
Got it. I'm like, I don't know if I can see your.
I'm sorry.
Superintendent.
May I ask for clarification, because that is something that is coming up that we do need a policy around, because that's not our current policy. And so are you saying this is the body that would create that policy about the kindergarten, that the age change, the deadline for when you have to be turned 5 by, would live here?
Correct, because that's a policy
Okay.
change, correct?
Yes, it
Yes,
will be a
and so,
policy change.
yeah, Dr. Molnar as chairs of policy here, we can handle that here and not handle it here and then handle it in board policy. We can handle that here and send it to the Rules Committee.
I'm sorry, and send it where?
Rules.
Rules Committee, okay.
All of our policies.
Yes, I
Okay.
didn't hear what you
Okay,
said.
yeah.
Thank you.
And so there are a number of ways that could be brought through this committee. And actually, I guess I got tired and I skipped all the way to 7, and I should have gone through the other ones. So if we can go back to number 4 on the screen up there. But because really, you as the administration are shaping the agenda. So given this very specific example, there is something you need to bring to the board. How do I do it? So with this kindergarten readiness, it could go in a curriculum and instruction update 301 because it's going to affect our classroom experience. It also could go into, moving here. It could go into new business, requests for future agenda items, and unfinished business policy review and recommendations. So there are a lot of areas that it can go into because a lot of times, especially something like this where it's coming down from the state, we've got the language. There's really not much to debate. We just need to review and update. Yeah. And so there are multiple ways depending on what aspects of it that is worth highlighting. What is it that we need to know? What changed and why does that matter? And what does that look like here at APS? Because just because it's changed for the whole state, we might have the opportunity to do something different or better than other places. Or we might do it the exact same way. That's good to know too. Member Jaros.
Superintendent, is what's some of the concern about if you want to propose a policy, which committee is the right one so that you're not wasting time in one as opposed to another? Is that kind of the concern?
Correct. I wasn't sure if one was more of the awareness committee, where the other one was more of the get it done committee, pass it, create the policy. So I wasn't sure if we were distinguishing between the two committees.
Member Harrison.
So what I envision in my mind is instructional policy. Again, 2/3 of this committee is 2/3 of the policy committee. So with instructional policy, we would merely be taking a recommendation of this committee. And if a policy has to be created, we would work together to do that. In that particular case, we can figure that out. There's no absolute, it has to follow this. But in the example that you gave with the kindergartens, this would be the best place. And if there's a question, then the two chairs will just talk and say, hey, we're going to handle that through this committee, this particular committee. I just wanted to make the point that we're not going to duplicate. We're not going to send it to one committee, send it to another committee. The policy committee meets right after this committee. I'm really pushing work back to Maltnar. That's what I'm really doing, okay? I just wanted to say that out loud, so.
Well, in that case, the implementation guidelines, the review of the policy will go back to, here's another example of, items that go from committee to committee, right? Well, that will go back to this. So you can't push it all off. Any other discussion on really anything that's left, or do we feel ready for our February 2nd meeting? President Sykes.
Madam Chair, thank you. I just want to reassure the administration that we're not going to, as Member Harrison said, we're not trying to make extra work for you. Not at all. We just want to make sure that we have an opportunity to thoroughly look at an issue and to kind of hash it out. And then remember that the final committee that it comes to is rules. And so as the superintendent and as the board president, if we find that there is something that's just not working for you, particularly in your administration, then we'll deal with it. Yeah, so don't worry that we're going to establish some additional anything, or you not know which committee should we go with. You know, our chairs will be talking to each other all of the time, and this is new for all of us. So we're all trying to work through this. And if we find that, as you say, one committee should be more of the work committee, the other committee should be more of the strictly policy committee, then we may find that that's what we have to do. But I see all committees as policy committees, really. All committees can establish policies. Whether we're talking the finance committee or all committees, probably except for students' celebration. But all the other committees can establish the policies, and they can skip right over to us to decide if it's ready to go on the agenda to pass. Yeah. So please give us all feedback. If you're saying this is not working for us as an administration, let us know that. If you're saying this is causing extra work for us, please let us know that. If you're saying this is slowing down work for us, please let us know that. That's what we're asking you, because we all want to work together to get to the same place together, hand in hand, and making the best decision for the district.
Dr. Lash.
Thank you, Chair Monar, and thank you, President Sykes, for saying that. And it made me think of one thing just to make sure clarity on, because in looking at, which I understand completely, everything flowing through the committee prior to being added to the board agenda. And I think that was a concern just sometimes with the timing of things. And so I appreciate you leaving, as Bruno Mars or Anderson Paak would say, leave the door open, I think in songs, to be able to, have that conversation if we find things are kind of slowed down.
Thank you. I appreciate all of that, and especially the concept of we are not trying to create additional work. And I know that this agenda feels like there's so much more in it than we used to do for instructional policy, and that's because I am of the opinion that our district does so much work. You and your team does so much work in this building, around this city, and when we would spend 45 minutes on only one thing, then we didn't get to hear about any of the amazing things that we're doing. And so part of my thought process, I want to highlight what else you're doing, and that's why you are shaping the agenda, because you know what you're doing all day better than I do. And so in preparing for how that's going to come to rules and how to get on the board agenda, that's where it loops back around also to this yearly cycle of work, so we can all plan ahead that this needs to come somewhere here, and we all have that deadline in mind also. So hopefully this works, but the door is open. Any other discussion before our February 2 meeting? All right. Well, then I will say at 5:20, I'll give everyone 10 minutes back. This meeting is adjourned, and we will meet again here on February 2nd. Thank you.